Hello and welcome to Reader Watch. We are your hosts. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Alex.
In this episode, we are going to be discussing Annihilation. So for the audience, for everyone watching, we are talking about the Annihilation movie and the Annihilation book. We are not talking about the entire trilogy, the Southern Reach trilogy, of which Annihilation is the first book. We're talking first book and the singular movie comparison. That's it. So there will be full spoilers. So if you have not read or watched or enjoyed Annihilation in any way, just be mindful that you probably won't know everything that we're talking about, because we're just going to be talking about it as if you already have enjoyed the content. So with that in mind, typically I am a reader. I like to read things before I watch them, and that is the case for this. I did read the book before I watched the movie, though according to my book, it wasn't very long before the movie came out. So I bought the book and then the movie came out. But that was the order in which I enjoyed it. What about you, Alex?
I guess it usually depends on what it is. Like if I watch a movie and it really grips me, I go out and reach look for the book just to see, hey, I want more. And that's what happened with Annihilation, and it happened with even movies that aren't that good. Like apparently nobody liked Ender's Game, but I went out, I read the book like several times because the book ended up being way better than the movie, fair enough. But like there was still like the plot intrigued me. Same with Annihilation, just wondering what's going on. So yeah, in this case it was book then movie.
Cool. So this, like Annihilation in general, both book and movie, is described as a weird science horror / sci-fi story. It's got quite a few descriptors, but I think most of them are accurate. Yeah, and like I think that's it. So it pretty much covers or follows a group of women scientists as they go into what is described as like an unexplained phenomenon, this unknown area that they need to find the answers to. So why is this happening? How do we prevent it? What happened to the previous teams that were investigating? That's pretty much what both book and movie are about. There's slight differences in what the entity or the thing is called. In the book, it's Area X. In the movie, it's the Shimmer. So if you hear us referring to it as either or, it's the same thing. Just for everyone participating or watching along at home. So that's pretty much what it's all about. We see these characters kind of encountering different challenges within the phenomenon, whether they're mental or physical challenges, kind of depends on the book, the movie. There's a couple different things that go wrong. And at the end of it, we are left with our one singular character, known as the biologist / Lena, depending on the book or the movie, which we'll talk about that. So our main female character is the quote unquote sole survivor at the end, and it's all kind of about her journey in particular. So that's what it's about. Let's talk about it. The first thing I want to talk about is the differences in the characters. So as I kind of just said, they're named in the movie, they're not named in the book. In the book, it's actually a group of 4 scientists. It's a biologist, an anthropologist, a psychologist, and a surveyor. In the movie, it's 5 women, only 2 of them retain the same jobs as the people from the book did. And they're all named. They all have backstories and names. They're really like fully fleshed out characters in the movie compared to the book. What do you like have an opinion about that?
Why do you need a linguist going into the Shimmer? Because
True.
That's what they added in the movie, right? A linguist.
No, the linguist was actually from the book. The linguist was supposed to be the 5th person in the book, but she never even went into the Shimmer. She just like didn't go.
Okay.
Yeah, they added in the movie a paramedic, a physicist, and a magnetologist. I'm not quite sure what that one is, truthfully. But it seemed to make sense. Like, okay, those are science-y things. The linguist thing confused me in the book. Like, it makes sense that she didn't go.
Right. So it does make sense. You bring in as many people from as many fields of study into this thing. Unfortunately, since nobody's coming out, why would you want to feed more, specialists and geniuses in there for them like not to make it out? the strategy go like from the beginning, from the get-go, it's kind of weird. It's on shaky legs considering everything that's happening. But I thought it was great because if it was a first time expedition, of course you would send in these sorts of people.
Mm-hmm. I think the interesting thing in terms of the naming of the characters in the movie versus the book, like obviously as an audience, I don't think it would make sense for like any character to refer to the other character as their physician. That wouldn't make sense. Like they need to actually communicate with each other. Because the book all comes from the biologist perspective, it's her telling the story in the past. She refers to people as their jobs, and it doesn't seem as weird. But when you're like face to face with somebody, you're not going to be like, "Hey, yo, surveyor, what you doing?" And I think that giving the characters names in the movie and giving them actual backstories, because most of the characters are not fleshed out in the book at all, except for the biologist and her husband primarily. It made sense and actually kind of answered the thing that you said, Alex, of like, why would you send these people in? Because it is revealed in the movie that all 5 of these women are like damaged in some way. They're like emotionally scarred. They have some type of trauma that makes them like willing to do a suicide mission. And it makes sense for them to show up there. And I thought that was a really cool difference between the book and the movie. Because in the book, like the other characters, they die and you don't really care. You're like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
And then I found in the movie, I really did care about most of the characters because you kind of knew their backstory. They had a name. They had more character than just like, hey, you linguist, what you doing? So I liked, even though it was a pretty notable difference, I really liked that difference between the two.
Yeah, just by giving them names alone, it personalizes them, makes them more fleshed out. And then you do find out that there are the backstories, a lot of them tragic backstories that even if you don't find out, you see the repercussions, like Josie cutting up her arms, for example, and Gina Rodriguez's character, Anya, she was like, she's a really angry person. Like you see a lot of these personality traits playing out in the movie that kind of hidden in the book.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think, I mean, the story itself is a very, like, I want to say character driven story, even though you don't know the characters that well in the book, but it's very like, the biologist, Lena, is telling her story. It's very like about the interactions between the people. And I think the really interesting thing that I don't know if the movie did quite as well, but I think it was an intentional choice, is in the book, it's very clear and it's constantly drilled in that the previous teams all went nuts. Like they're like, they killed themselves, they killed each other, they committed suicide. Those were the 3 reasons for them dying. In the books, there was no third party entity. There was no bear, there was no alligator, there was no external danger. It was just like the people in your party going nuts. I don't think the movie really, it didn't super do that. The only character that truly gave into that was Gina Rodriguez's character, the paramedic, as I refer to her.
Yeah.
She's the only one who really succumbed to those like tendencies, whereas everyone else kind of got murdered by creatures. And I don't know if that worked the same way. Like it worked in the, like it was exciting, it was dramatic, but it didn't really work in like the psychological sense that you get from the book.
Right. No, I know exactly what you mean. That's why, like, the book felt just more straight up sci-fi. Like the horror element was kind of like really diminished, actually, especially in comparison with the movie. That was really why the movie stood out to me so much. It was like true horror. It was like fear of the other, of the unknown. And while there was a lot of mystery in the book, it wasn't as frightening as the movie itself, because the movie it showed a lot, even without showing it, like just the clues of just the plant life, just a combination of plants and flowers. That's scary in itself, and the thought that is also happening within the bodies of the people in there. And there's body horror in there. There's a lot of things going on in this movie that the book. I guess it took a different route.
Yeah. Would it surprise you that in my research, the director of the movie only read the book once?
look, the concept, sometimes the concept of something is so strong that like you like, I'm sure you just started writing, just jotting notes, and like he just had to sort of like insert things into his own story. Like it reminds me of did you know that Stephen King still hates Stanley Kubrick's The Shining?
Yeah.
He can't stand it because apparently it strayed too far from the book. Like for one thing, he called, like, the first time you see Jack Nicholson, he looks crazier than a shithouse raccoon. That's what he said. So Jack Nicholson turning crazy wasn't really believable because he looked crazy to begin with. But like The Shining, I love the movie, The Shining. I bought it, the Jack Nicholson's whole thing. And like Stanley Kubrick's vision is unparalleled. It's still like my favorite horror movie of all time. And Annihilation, it's just another example of like when a director has a vision, you just have to see that through. Unfortunately, like I suppose the box office didn't agree, but God, it's heartbreaking. But yeah, his vision remains, and it's a memorable movie.
I think it like, without going, I don't want to talk too much about this because I'm intending to do a reader watch about this, but it falls under the World War Z category for me, where it's similar in name and that's about it. Like name and concept, and then everything else is pretty different. And I think in this case it works quite well. I think the book is a self-contained book / trilogy, and the movie is a self-contained thing. But I think when you are trying to find like the similarities, you're gonna be disappointed, because there's like a huge plot point in the book and the subsequent books, because it's talked a lot about in the trilogy. There's the whole like hypnotism thing,
right?
So I think, and I truthfully don't think this could have been put to film properly, so I think that's why this isn't the case. But the idea of Area X or the Shimmer breaking people when they enter, like, that's what would happen. The first expeditions that went in, it literally broke them mentally. So the like continuing expeditions, they had to be put under hypnosis in order to even enter the Shimmer properly. And then the psychologists of the team had these like code words in order to help kind of like wrangle these people who were all going through like mental breakdowns in the Shimmer. They didn't do that in the movie. So you lose that huge piece of like, do you actually trust the psychologist? Because there's this whole like, do we trust the people we're with? Because in the book, there is the showdown between the main character, the biologist, and the psychologist, in which the psychologist tries to get the biologist to kill herself, because the code word for suicide is annihilation, hence the title, which is completely lost in the movie, that like the title's actually suicide. Like, so I think that's an interesting, like, huge piece of the book that they're just like, just kidding, cutting room floor, none of that.
I mean, it's kind of hinted at in the book, and in the movie, and I suppose it's one of its failings, where when they first entered the Shimmer, days were lost, and like, if I remember correctly, in the book, that was due to the psychologist's hypnosis, that they lost a few days because of her. And in truth, a psychologist in this setting, really, there's no reason for one. So that's something that isn't addressed in the movie. Like, what would be the need for her to be there besides being team leader? So yeah, that's maybe, overlooked.
Yeah, they try to explain it away a little bit, because there is a conversation between, in the movie, Lena and Ventress, so biologist and psychologist, where the psychologist who's the leader is trying to explain the goal is to get to the lighthouse. And Lena, Natalie Portman's character, looks at her and goes, no, but what's your purpose? I know you're not here to do that. So what is it you're doing? And then it's kind of alluded that her whole thing is to just keep a check on them mentally. But like, good job. She does a terrible job. We see the paramedic go absolutely bananas.
Insane.
And then she just like F's off, and then poor Tessa Thompson's character just decides to be one with plants. Like, good job keeping everyone mentally okay. Like, you really nailed it. So yeah.
Absolutely.
I would say like the other thing that kind of shows up in the movie versus the book is the book does not explain the Shimmer, Area X, at all. There is no solution to it. There's no source of it. They're not sure if it's extraterrestrial. Like there's not an answer. They don't know what's happening. Whereas in the movie, there's a lot of answers. So you have the fact that they know the Shimmer's expanding. Whereas in the book, the main character doesn't know that until the very end of the book that it's expanding. The whole physicist, Tessa Thompson's character being like, it's refracting. That's not a thing. Yeah. There is no answer in the book. And the movie is like, here's so many scientific words and jargon to give you an answer for this thing that doesn't make sense literally at all. And I thought that was really interesting that they felt the need to answer it in the movie, and there is no answer in the book. What do you think about like that?
I don't know, maybe Alex Garland, the director, had the premonition that he was only going to get one shot, one movie, so he decided to put in some answers. Like the movie begins with a comet hurtling towards the lighthouse, so like automatically this is an alien science fiction story. I mean, I only read the first book of the Southern Reach series, and well, like it didn't provide a lot of answers, especially with that ending. But like just the ending in the movie alone, it fills in a lot of gaps of what's going on. That like the gaps that are left, you fill in yourself, and like that's fantastic. But in the book, you're just left with these questions that just sort of tell you, well, keep reading. So I mean, Jeff VanderMeer, he got his chance. He wrote out his trilogy. He went for it. He did it.
He won a bunch of awards for it as well. And I think a really interesting thing. And now, like, I obviously didn't read the other two. Like the first one didn't get me enough to read the other two, which has truthfully never happened to me in a trilogy or a group of books. If I read the first one, I've always read the rest. This is the first time I've not. But I think it's really interesting that the way he wrote it is he actually released all three books within 8 months. So it's not like they were self-contained stories. He wrote it as one story and divided it into 3 books. And I think that, like, this is a thin book.
No, it is.
Like, we could have had 2 more of this and had a full story. And I think that's where it went wrong with the book, in my opinion, having not read the other one. So I literally don't know how it ends. But the movie is an adaptation of this book only. Like, they explicitly said that. Because there was one thing that, when I was doing my searching, one thing that came up as a problem that people had with the movie is the main character is actually supposed to be of Asian descent, because that's mentioned in the 3rd book.
Yeah, well.
But they adapted the first book. So I'm like, I don't know. I didn't feel a way about that, honestly.
No, I mean, diehard readers, I'm sure like that was a contentious point, but I mean, just the fact that Alex Garland only read it once, that means like he probably didn't read the other book. Like, he couldn't care less. So he just, went for it with the best actress available. And you know what? Thankfully, Natalie Portman was available, because, God, she did an amazing job in that.
Yeah. I have to give like just props to the cast in general.
Yeah,
I thought every single person was spectacular in their role. Gina Rodriguez, like her shift as a character from being like fun and like flirty and like doing her thing, and then just like absolutely losing her marbles, but then her like final stand was spectacular.
Yes.
And then I just have a soft spot in my heart for Tessa Thompson. Anything she does I think is spectacular, just because I adore her immensely. And I just thought she played this really beautifully damaged character. Like, you could really, having one other character mention that like Tessa Thompson's character like cuts herself, not to kill herself, but to feel alive. And then that's all you know about her character. That's enough. Like, that is enough to fully understand that character. And when she chooses to like die the way she does, it made sense. So I was like, you do your thing, girl. You be retracted with the plants or whatever the science is for that.
it was a bittersweet moment, especially in the face of the scene that happened previously where you lost Anya, I think, Gina Rodriguez's character. You lost her to the bear, and you also lost Cass also to the bear, and you hear, you know, the bear's voice and like what could happen to you if you know, like her dying, I don't know, like her death rattle lived on in this bear that ate her, which is like, that's not the way to go. So Tessa Thompson's character decided on the way to go, and that's why it was just bittersweet, just like a heavy contrast to what just happened.
Yeah, I will say I've in the past, and I swear this has been a conversation at some point with Lunchbox. I don't know where this conversation happened, if it was recorded or not, but I disagreed about Annihilation being a horror movie. At some point, I expressed that opinion. I would like to formally retract that opinion because for the first time, I was rewatching the movie today, and for the first time ever, the like enormity of the bear actually hit me. Like as you said, the death rattle, like the sound coming from it. I don't know if I just didn't pay attention to that the first time that I saw it. Like it just didn't hit me that way. But holy crap, that scares me. Like, not like a bear doesn't scare me, but the thing eating me and then screaming my final scream forever, that's terrifying. That is like super nightmare fuel. Like alligator, I don't really care, but like the screaming bear, that is so scary. It comes from nowhere. Nothing close happens in the book, but like putting that on screen was so brilliant. It's such a freaky ass creature. It's like top tier creatures for me now in horror movies. Like it's up there.
Absolutely.
So messed up. So messed up.
The implications of that, it's just like, you know, just sends you into an existential frenzy, you know, just thinking about it. And yeah, as far as horror goes, it definitely has its elements. Like that dude getting cut open and you see the wriggling intestines. That's like and like I said, the body horror stuff. It reminds me of a movie like The Thing. Same with the bear. Like it reminds me of the dog creatures fusing it to something. Like this bear is just something not from this earth, and there's a lot of scary stuff there. and actually, I watched it last week, and like when you see the bear walking slowly and just the scream coming out of its mouth, I felt a little something like in my chest, like a little tingle, like whoa, what is this? Yeah.
The one thing I want to say the movie just absolutely nailed in reference to the bear, but also just overall, sound design was so good. In particular, the final scene in the lighthouse, it's just like otherworldly enough that it's like, I didn't find that scene to be particularly good. Like I thought that weird mirror version of her was just stupid looking. Like I didn't buy into that. But the sounds had my like skin crawling. Like it just felt otherworldly, it felt unknown, it felt scary in that sense to me. So I loved that, especially because like going from a book to a movie, what's it going to sound like? Nobody knows. And I think they nailed the feel of the book, of this like otherworldly, unknown, like I don't know what it is and therefore it scares me. They nailed that with the sound 100%.
Yeah, and I just want to say I bought into the visuals, because like just like the sound is just like these sounds that I've never heard in my life, and they're playing it over this weird, I don't know what to call it, like this mirror fractal thing that it looks like it's moving towards you, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's just
like,
standing. Yeah, it's like staying absolutely still, and it like absolutely surreal. Just a combination of the two, the sound and the visual. It reminded me of like the first time I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I was just captivated, just like on the edge of my seat, like what is happening with these visuals? What is going to happen? What does this mean? And I felt the exact same thing watching the movie, or watching the end of the movie.
Now that we're talking about the end, we have to talk about the end just in general, because I think in the book versus movie discussion, the ending is the biggest difference by far, besides like the addition of creatures. But the ending is vastly different. It's completely different. So in the book, our main character, the biologist, she doesn't kill the shimmer thing. There is no shimmer thing. She realizes her husband is potentially still, part of him is still alive in the area, because the version of him that came home is dead at this point. He died before she even started the mission in the book. And she is resolved to go find him. So the book ends with her saying, I'm going to go up the coast to another outpost or whatever. I'm going to find my husband. That's the end of the book.
Yeah.
Vastly different. So at the end of the movie, we see biologist / Lena fighting the mirror refracted version of her, the humanoid looking thing, which she defeats, and then returns home to her maybe husband, maybe clone husband. And then she herself is also maybe not herself.
Right.
So like a very ambiguous ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the movie was filled with these antagonists that were, you know, physically imposing, like the crocodile and the bear. So like it makes sense that at the end of the movie there's like just another antagonist that the book was missing, just like a thing, a creature that Lena had to face off against. So like in terms of watching the movie, it was well within my expectations that would come up, like that there would be some sort of blockade. I thought that it was going to be Ventress, maybe like fused with an alien or something like that was going to be the thing, but it turned out to be a carbon copy of Lena, and it felt it was more fulfilling seeing her confront this and face off against it and come out all the better for it, and be able to escape the shimmer, but the ambiguity of what happened to her, that I don't know. I mean, it kind of bothered me, you know. It's like, well, we don't have an answer for that, plus we're not getting a sequel, so what is happening there? But I did much prefer it over the book, because the book, the whole to be continued thing, although it's not as bad with an 8-month, you know, waiting period, unlike a George R.R. Martin Game of Thrones book, right?
Yeah.
So it might not be that bad to wait. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say I didn't like the book ending, but also I'm aware that it's not truly the ending. But I do feel like even in other trilogies I've read, like Harry Potter, for example, like the story ends at the end of the book, and it's the characters that carry over. And I really wish that had been more of the case. Like the story ended more in the book, not just like, we made it here, and it means nothing, and nothing matters, and I'm just going to keep traveling. That didn't really work for me. So like Annihilation as a book didn't work because it didn't end. It just was like intermission, it felt like. Whereas truthfully, the movie ending didn't really work for me either. I don't know what I wouldn't have preferred the book ending in movie format. It wouldn't have worked.
No.
Just, I struggle when there's an adaptation of something and they create their own like entity, right? So they created the bear, and the bear played by a set of rules. Like it could be killed. This is how it behaved. This is what we could expect from this creature. They didn't really follow those rules with this like refracted being at the end, because it came out as a mirror image. It would mirror her movements, but then sometimes it wouldn't. And then like, here, let me hand you a grenade and walk away, and somehow you don't follow me, or you don't hand it back. Do you know what I mean? I wish there had been clearer rules to how that interaction worked, because it just didn't, I don't know, I questioned it too much. It was like too convenient to me that like you could just hand it a grenade and walk away.
The way I took it was that since it was born of you, it would copy you until it would gain its own autonomy and independence, and then break away from you. Lena's husband, for whatever
Kane.
reason, Kane, he killed himself. So
Right.
we didn't see how that would play out. He willingly gave up his life so that his doppelganger could go off. But Lena didn't. She wasn't as suicidal as that, or at least Ventures did her job in that respect. But I saw that moment as like her doppelganger just starting to become autonomous, like her own being, and unfortunately she was holding a hot egg, and so, yeah.
Okay, honestly, that description does kind of help me, because I get stuck there each time I watch the movie. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that does actually, okay, if I actually do think about it, like realistically, that's right when her doppelganger starts to actually look like her. So maybe that kind of plays into what you're saying. Maybe.
It's my headcanon. It's fine. You can use it, please.
It works better than anything I came up with, because everything I come up with makes me mad at the movie. Sweet. Is there anything else that you think we haven't discussed?
Okay, I'm gonna bring this up because, oh my God, it's been haunting me. So I took this science fiction course in university, and I read a short story that I don't know if it was influenced by the Southern Reach series, but imagine if Area X kept spreading around the globe. And so if it would spread at the same rate, the same radius, that means it would envelop the planet, and it would leave just like a tiny, like a circumference there, right? Like one last piece of land. So the short story happens in this piece of land at the end of the world. Like it's coming towards them, not at a fast rate or anything, but the protagonist, I'm pretty sure it was a journalist or something, but I don't know the name of the story, and I want to reread it because it was so cool. They were in the African savannah at like the last hotel at the end of the world, and damn it, I want to find this book. I don't know if you read it or familiar with it. No. Okay. Anybody read it? It
sounds cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And like I remember I read it, and years later I watched Annihilation. I'm like, oh wow, it's just like the short story that I read a few years ago. But I still, like this past weekend, I've been like looking for this short story. I found like the textbook from the class and nothing. So it's bugging me.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
oh, that's really, I would love to actually read that story of like the one chunk left.
Yeah,
that sounds cool.
I mean, I'll let you know if I find the story, but so far, no luck.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I love that. So I think that brings us to the end of our discussion, truly. So in the fashion of the show, now I ask you the question: if someone had never read or watched Annihilation, what would you recommend, the book or the movie?
And the book. Sorry, not the book. The movie. The movie. Because like, if I don't know, if you know me, I love The Thing. I love even The Fly and 2001: Space Odyssey. And I think this movie combines like portions of those movies that I love. So I would just, I'd recommend the movie. How about you?
Oh, I feel like such a traitor to my type, but because I love books, I always recommend books. And truthfully, I don't struggle to read books. Like even a boring book, I can read it. I'm a very fast reader. This book took me. I remember when I first read it. I've read it a couple times now, but the first time it took me, this is gonna sound like, I don't know, it took me a week. Whereas I can read a book this size in a day. Easily. No problem. I was on vacation with my family. I had this book. I'm at the beach. I got nothing else going on. I could not read it. So instead I read like a chapter, and then I read my sister's book, and then I read a chapter, and then I read my dad's book, and then I read a chapter. Like that was how I read the stupid book. So for that reason, I absolutely recommend the movie over the book. But I will say, like, maybe in a year or 2 years, I'm going to try to read the other two books and see if that changes my opinion, though I really don't think it will. Because I think the movie is self-contained, visually impressive, great acting. If you want like a weird sci-fi that's not so like, The only other weird sci-fi horror I can think of is Color Out of Space, but that's like super weird. This one's not quite as weird. Though the body horror is very similar, I would say. I think this is a good movie. It's entertaining. It's also not super long. It's like 2 hours or so. And it doesn't feel super long. So I would recommend to watch it, and maybe don't even read the book. Maybe not. Unless you're going to read the trilogy and report back and let us know if like we missed out by not reading the rest of it. But I vote movie as well. So with all that said, this has been Reader Watch. We talked about Annihilation, book and movie. And I'm Michelle. I was joined by Alex. And thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Let us know if you've read the trilogy. I'm very curious if any of you exist out there. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.